we stop talking about Magic.
Pretty much.
Well, it's like the one game we're always still playing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of Spellstorm Miniatures. My name is Jeremiah.
I'm Dan.
And this is Chad.
And we are a show about miniature war games, including War Machine and Hordes by Privateer Press. Our goal here is to inspire you to play more. We have a very exciting episode for you today. Today, we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. We're going to be talking about, we're basically be asking and answering one question, and that is, what do you do to learn a new skill, and how do you stick with it? And I think the parameters are going to be strictly as it relates to hobby. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's all kinds of skills out there that someone can learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before we get there, just want to check in with you guys and ask if you've played any games lately.
I've just been working through Mario's 3D World. I think that's it. Bowser's Fury. It's like an old game for the Switch, or it's an old game, Mario game, but like redone for the Switch. So
Okay.
Son got that, and then that's all we've been kind of playing, working through all the worlds.
Nice.
Nice. I do love Mario. It's like going home, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Last weekend, our fourth person between myself and my two roommates came over, and we got to play a couple more games of King's Dilemma. So we got to play two more games, and the next game is going to be session 12. And I was actually wrong when I talked about this before. There's a maximum of 15 little things in the back of the rule book for you to catalog the points and stuff like that. But from what one of my roommates said that he's seen from other average plays is that a lot of people actually go a little bit beyond that. It's like 15 is about the average, but some people have taken 16, 17, or 18 sessions in order to kind of get the last couple of cards that they need to wrap up storylines to actually like trigger the end of the game, because the game's not over until you get a certain number of these larger mystery stickers that are in the very back. And I think you have to get, I think you need to complete, it's either 5 or 6. Every time you complete one of these story arcs, you get another one of these stickers that you unlock. And it depends, the sticker you pull off and add to your sheet depends on which story you did. And you complete either 5 or 6 of these in order to actually finish the game. Once the 5th or the 6th one, I don't remember which, gets added, then the game is over, and then you go into, like, you figure out the final scoring of everything like that. And you actually, you judge the scoring, I think, based off of everyone's scorings throughout the game. Not only that, but then also, as you play games, you earn 2 other resources called Prestige and Greed. Or, is it Greed? I think it is Greed. It might be called something else. Oh, wow. That's real bad. Crave? Prestige or Crave? I think is what it is. I don't know if it's Crave or not because I don't get it very often because that's not really what my house wants to do. But Crave is kind of like you're jealous of the throne and you're craving more power. You generally get more crave by being, it can be, depending on which hidden agendas you take, can work you towards getting bonus crave. Or if you are like in last place frequently, if you're in the lower end of the scoring at the end of each session, you generally will end up with more crave because your house is craving more power. And those two things, and the prestige is basically the opposite of that. It's like you gain prestige, you're a more noble house kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that also determines how much prestige you have, also determines the order in which case you are all draft picking your hidden agendas at the beginning of the game. So the more prestige you have, the longer you have to wait before you get to pick your open agenda. So if you have less prestige, then you get more access to the open or the closed hidden agenda cards that you draft. There's 6 different hidden agendas, and then you take cards out depending on how many players there are, and then you draft what's left. So with 4 of us, there's 6 cards, you take 1 out. So we all pick from the 5 that are left. So there's always one that gets left out randomly, and then we pick. And those are different guides for how you're going to earn points based off of like where resources are in the resource tracker at the end of the game. So we're getting to the home stretch, the last handful of sessions that we have, and then once we get done with this, we're planning to someone else is going to get a copy of the game, and we're going to do another playthrough and add either 1 or 2 more players to kind of change up the dynamic a little bit. And I think that will kind of help because my house started. I started playing my house as kind of like a bleeding heart a little bit because they're about like the happiness of the common person. They're very welcoming to like other people who come and like visit their lands because they have like very rich soil. Like the vineyards and stuff in the area are like very nice, but I've been playing against kind of some power hungry warmongering houses, and I'm a little bit less of a bleeding heart because I haven't been getting what I've been wanting to do kind of for the betterment of the common people, and so I've actually changed a little bit of the way that I've been playing the house. It'll be interesting to see if we get some other people, if it will help kind of tip that dynamic, because it just on so many of the games I felt like I was just severely outvoted by like 1 or 2 other people at the table, and there were a lot of times where I was like really dug in on trying to vote for something a certain way that I got overruled on, and we ended up kind of going down these kind of terrible rabbit holes of, of things getting flipped on their head. So it'll be interesting to do another playthrough, pick some different houses, and add another person into the mix from the 4, because it some of the voting process definitely felt like it sometimes felt like it didn't matter. With the people who were playing and with the dynamics of the 4 different houses. So.
So you said that you had to have 5 or 6 of these things accomplished.
Yeah.
How many have you guys accomplished so far?
I think we've gotten through 3 of them. I think in these last 2 sessions, I think we finished 3 of the storylines. And we've played 11 games. We've played 11 games at this point. So the way that it works is as you vote on these dilemmas, the different legacy things that get added to either the board or what is called the dilemma deck, which are the different cards that have the different story elements to it. As you vote on things, you will add stickers to the board that have to do with certain resources in positive or negative ways that affect the beginning setup. But then also you will sometimes open an envelope and you will add it's a new jump off point for a storyline pretty much. And that will usually have kind of a launch card that talks a little bit about what it is that's happening, and then 2 or 3 other story cards that get shuffled into the dilemma deck for you to pull from later and then progress the story from there. And then one of those, and then those cards will also sometimes lead to more envelopes getting opened as the story progresses and develops. And then eventually it will have an ending one where this is the last piece of the storyline. This is what finishes it and then gets you that end game larger sticker that you add into the rule book.
Nice. Yeah, we've done Pandemic Legacy, and before the actual pandemic hit, we were 2/3 of the way through season 2, and so and I really like how some of those legacy games come about. There's a lot of mystery, and you don't know what's inside the box until you open it. And it makes for some compelling gaming sessions. So
Yeah, and I wonder if there was a little like opening paragraph that we forgot to read that was going to give us like a little bit of general background about the kingdom, because we've learned a lot of different stuff about the foundation of the kingdom and the origin of the kingdom-wide unified religion
Yeah.
that everyone believes in, and it's not necessarily.
What you thought it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a dark history, a little bit. So it's been really cool and really interesting, and yeah. And then yesterday we got to play another game of Arkham Horror, the board game, second edition, and we played the biggest one, and uh, we started playing it, and about 45 minutes into it, we got to a board state that was very, very rapidly going to be turning very, very badly against us. So we decided to just restart it and start over because, like, the big bad guy started in basically the furthest place away from us, plus a bunch of horror spawned in that area, and so like the negative things in the storyline were just going to start piling up really rapidly and just
Yeah.
start projecting us down this, this very, like, basically it was like we kind of got screwed from the beginning through a series of unfortunate randomness, and then we
Well, isn't that Cthulhu?
restarted. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we decided to clear the board, start again. A couple of us, I think, changed characters. And this time we were doing pretty good for a little while. And then it, as it always goes, a couple of rounds of some bad rolls in combat, and it very quickly started spiraling into a downward spiral of we all died. We all froze to death.
Ooh, scary and harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was able to get a new game in. I love playing new games, and so we had picked up the starter for Pacific Rim Extinction. Have you guys heard about this one?
I have heard about it, but I haven't looked into it that much.
So I just briefly heard about it, and I know very little about it. Actually, it might have been a Kickstarter. It might not have been.
I think
don't
it
know.
was.
It was.
I think it was a
Okay.
couple of years ago, right? I
Yeah.
think it was around the time that the second movie was coming out. I think
Okay.
the second
Well,
Pacific Rim. Yeah.
in the starter, you get a kaiju and you get a Jaeger, and then they have since released boosters or expansion packs is probably the best way to describe it. And I think each expansion comes with either a Jaeger or a kaiju, depending what you buy. And so I think all told, so far there are only a total of 3 kaiju made and 3 Jaeger made. So 2 subsequent expansions for each side. And in the starter, you get everything you need to play. You get tokens and cards and everything, and then you get a double-sided map, and you get a mix of 2D terrain and 3D terrain. So the buildings were cardboard, and so we took a little bit of time to punch them out and then construct them. They're really easy to construct, really easy to punch out, and it was really nice. And it actually encourages you to place a 2D hex where the building is going to go on the playing mat, and then you put the building on top of the mat. Probably because the building's going to get destroyed at some point, and then you can step over it or onto it or something. But one of the things I really, really liked about it is they have like scenario cards or objective cards to describe, because it's supposed to be more scenario driven than it is just a beat 'em up, mash 'em up kind of game.
Yeah.
In one of the scenario, they have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them, I think. You can just randomly draw, and it gives you the full setup. It gives you where to put the terrain. It gives you where to deploy the Jaeger and the kaiju. And it even tells you the upgrades. So a kaiju, on the player card, there are stats you have to keep track of. And then there are And then there are 2 meters. One of them, I think, is like for the kaiju, it's a rage meter, and then like some kind of energy meter, and so you're limited on how many times you can use that resource. And then there's 2 slots. You get an offensive mutation and a defensive mutation. And then for the Jaeger card, there are 2 slots for your pilots, and how your pilots match up will tell you about your skills too. And so that's pretty cool. And then the Jaeger gets 1 enhancement. And so on these pre-made cards, it tells you exactly which mutations to give the kaiju, which pilots, and which enhancement to get the Jaeger for quote unquote like an even game.
Yeah.
And the way that it works, it's very, and I love this because it really reminds me of the movies. It's very, very kaiju centric. So the kaiju player in ties gets to choose like all the time. And even when you set up, like if you were to do an open play match, the kaiju player determines the size of the battle. And so, like for example, I might get this wrong. The kaiju was worth, let's say, 4 points, and so it's going to be a 4-point kaiju battle. That equals either 8 or 12. I can't remember if it's double or triple. I think it's double. Now that I think about it, the double amount of Jaeger. So the Jaeger player can bring 8 points, and the kaiju player brings 4 points, and that's an even battle. So like my Jaeger was like 5 points, and then one pilot was 2 points, and one pilot was 1 point, because you have to pay for each pilot differently. Yeah. So it's kind of fun. You get a bunch of pilot cards to choose from, and then we haven't opened in the expansions. I don't know what's in them, and so but the starter right away it's easily playable. The models, they're gorgeous. They're like 80mm models. They're huge, and they're
cool. They're pre-painted, you said.
They're
right?
pre-painted, they're pre-painted nicely. Like it actually looks good and it looks fun, and you can play right out of the box. So it's a cheap game, and if you like kaiju, if you like big giant robots beating up big giant monsters, yeah, I recommend it. We're gonna play some more. So yeah.
I was just looking it up. Yeah, it was a Kickstarter, and yeah, they have Wave 2 is just shipping now, I guess. So they have like 4 more of each coming out.
Oh, nice.
Crack the game wide open. But yeah, it's saying the kaiju are 111mm base, and the Jaegers are 85mm. Yeah, so there's some big boys.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there's more, because Oz was disappointed in the Jaeger selection or the kaiju selections, because I think his favorite kaiju wasn't made. And then for the Jaegers, you have Gypsy Avenger and you have a Gypsy Danger. So I'm pretty happy with my selections. I'm going to play the Jaeger side mostly, probably, and then Oz is mostly probably going to play the kaiju side. So,
well, that works out then.
Yeah. But it's nice putting miniatures on the table, even if it's sort of more compact and not like a traditional war game like we like to play. But
that sounds like easy just to deploy and go.
Yeah, well, especially with those cards, it tells you how to do it. There's no thinking. You just set it up like it is, and then you can play right away. So, and it uses a fun dice mechanic. Kind of reminds me of Riot Quest or Monpok dice kind of thing. Yeah. There's a proprietary D6, and then there's like another one that kind of determines other outcomes. And so you're just throwing pools of dice. It's fun. So yeah, you look for more pictures of that on the Discord, probably.
There'll be more.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we kind of shift gears and get to our main topic? We want to talk about how do you learn a new skill and how do you stick with it? And so I think between the three of us, we've put our heads together and came up with a few talking points. And Who wants to get us started in that?
Sure. I mean, pretty much in today's age, if I want to learn a new skill, I check out YouTube. Do an internet search, and 20 YouTube videos come up.
Yeah.
I mean, or lately, like some of it is on our Discord or any Discord, really, of just, if it's hobby related, chances are we know someone who's kind of done it. Obviously, it's a little harder to get together and practice that skill together at the moment. But
I don't want to. Sorry to interrupt, but like that's a really key point. Before the pandemic, we War Machine players got together a running board every week, and inevitably there was a handful of guys in the back who were hobbying instead of playing, and just sitting around the table, you're gonna pick up something from someone else, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of don't have that right now, and so that's a keen observation, Dan. Yeah. I kind of went back, kind of maybe philosophical, I think, because I think YouTube is a fantastic tool, but if you don't even know what to search for, I don't know, it could be hard, but I think like when it comes to like hobbying and learning how to paint and things like that, I think I'm at the point now where I want to identify a new skill. I want to like learn something new, and like the mental thing is, okay, what is it that I want to learn, and then why do I want to learn it? Like kind of going through that process of, is there a specific skill that I want to work on? Why do I want to work on it? And then ultimately, how will it help me with my overall hobby? Like, let's say I learn how to do this certain thing that exists out there, and we can come up with some examples in a second. But if I don't, let's say I work on one model with it, but if I don't use it over and over again, was that worth the effort kind of putting it out there? But there's all kinds of things to learn. A lot of folks in our Discord server are doing non-metallic metal stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people.
Popular one right now.
Yeah, two-brush blending was super. Like, I kept hearing about that when I first started painting, and I was like, "What is that?" And I still don't think I've mastered that. To be honest, dry brushing I consider dry brushing a skill.
Yeah,
and I've messed that up a few times, and I've also got it right a few times. So there we go. But like I think starting with the why and the what. What is it that you want to learn, and then why? And then if you know how to answer that in a satisfactory way, I think it's going to stick longer. But that's sort of like, to me, that's like the very beginning of the journey.
Yeah. Usually the why is I see someone else have something cool, and I'm like, oh, how'd they do that?
Yeah, the why is really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some very talented people around us that are doing some really fun things, and it's like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, I in general am not as much of a person who will very often go out of my way to learn new stuff. I haven't really hit that. I don't think I've really hit that personally, like as a painter or a hobbyist, really, of getting tired of what it is that I am doing, or feeling experimental about trying something different. There have been a couple of instances where I've done it while I was kind of working on something, where it's like I want to do a certain thing, like I want to do a fade on a certain piece. I did this a couple of years ago with the Lady of Anguish model that I was painting, Lady of Anguish by Creature Caster, and I wanted the colors on the legs to look like it was fading from one color to another, and it wasn't a skill that I had intentionally started out with the idea of pursuing. It was just kind of something that came to me while I was working on the piece, because that happens a lot where like I will kind of discover some of the color scheme as I'm working on the piece of like I know some general things that I want to hit, but like for some of the details and things like that, I'll just kind of work on it as it go along, and
Yeah.
um, and I just don't. It's kind of that if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality a little bit of like
Yeah.
what I'm doing already for a lot of the color schemes and a lot of the paint jobs and stuff that I've done in the past works for me, and I haven't felt I guess confident enough in my abilities to try and venture into something really difficult, and also because I still try and do it sometimes just as a relaxing pastime. I don't always want to try something that's going to feel like work
Yeah.
if I'm sitting down and doing it. But that's just me as a hobbyist. There have definitely been times where I've tried different things, and I'll talk about those a little bit later.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I want to step
but
in right
just
here, and I want to make a comment or make an observation, and to kind of add to what you just said. Like, you've been painting a lot longer than me, and so there's just certain things that you just pick up along the way through the practice and stuff. But the fact that you just said that you're open to experimenting sometimes is, I think that's a fantastic learning opportunity. Like, I remember. My first few models that I painted took me a long time to paint because I was very meticulous about, I didn't realize where the spaces where you can make mistakes and it still come out okay on the
yeah,
end because
yeah,
I hadn't seen enough finished product. But
yeah,
there's one time, and I love this. I took, who was it? Kel Baylock. He was primed completely in white, and I had been painting with pretty thick pigmented, like the GW base colors,
yeah,
and then I had picked up a few washes and inks or whatever and I was like, what would happen if I just painted him with a wash, and then what if I kept layering wash over wash over wash?
yeah.
And so I painted Kel Baylock, and the only two items that I painted was three, I guess: the handkerchief around his neck,
Mm,
the gun stock, and then the barrel of his weapon.
yeah,
And those were actual paint with thick pigment and stuff, and the rest of the
yeah,
bit was all like layers of inks.
yeah,
And it's still one of my most favorite models I've ever painted.
yeah,
I thought it turned out wonderful, and that was all because I
yeah.
just had the question and that I wanted to pursue, and so being open to experimentation, I think, is helpful too. I don't know. So like you
Yeah.
said, so
Yeah, well, and we were brainstorming on this last week a little bit when we were kind of having a short meeting, and at first I didn't think of any techniques where I had really done any sort of experiment or tried anything new. And as we kept talking about it, I thought about very clear. I think it was three very clear instances where I did try something mostly just off of. One of them was I had heard about a technique, I wanted to try it and replicate it, and I had a happy accident, and it turned out awesome.
mhm.
And then the other two were kind of just me playing around with trying to do something different, and some of it is kind of honestly, it's trying to find a lazy way to do something that looks really cool.
Yeah.
Was kind of what I was trying to do. Um, I guess the one that I stole from somebody else or from somewhere else, I don't remember where I heard about this, but I heard about the splotching technique, which is where you have kind of a wider bristle brush that you get some paint on the end of it, and you basically stab the model, um, with the ends of the bristles to kind of splotch the paint on in certain areas. And it's a
Mm.
way to get, you do this sometimes with different colors. What I did was I used two different colors actually with this technique, and it's to get different texture. For like skin, like membrane on a wing, or soft skin for like a monster or something like that. And what I did this on was when I was painting Gorgadra um, from Monster Apocalypse, is I decided I wanted to try and play with this technique because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do for the color scheme. I had some ideas, but I wasn't sure exactly. Like the armor is super easy to do, but I was like, there's all of this, kind of fleshy skin that's exposed. I don't know what I want to do with it. So I believe I know one of the colors I used, and I had bought these colors too to kind of play around with this. One was sulfuric yellow by Privateer Press, which is kind of like a little bit of an off yellow, not quite as bright as their normal Cygnus. It's a little bit more a little more tan, I think. I'm not sure. And then the other one was Rinflesh. So I took two kind of very opposing colors, and I splotched. I think I did a really heavy Rinflesh over pretty much the entire model except for the armor plates, and then I took the sulfuric yellow and splotched over top of that, and it created this kind of weird, different colored alien textured skin. And then the happy accident that also came from this was I had grabbed Privateer Press's red ink, and I was trying it out, and I thought that the ink was going to work kind of like a wash, and I never really used inks before, and so I started applying it onto the model, and it was covering with a lot more red than I thought it was, and at first I panicked. Because I was like, "Oh crap! This isn't what I wanted. I thought it was gonna like kind of just give it a little bit of a red tint, like a wash does." But it didn't. It put a much heavier pigmented red tone over it, but it was thin enough still that some of the splotchiness underneath of it was still kind of coming through the red. So you could still see a little bit of that splotchy technique that I'd done that gave it this weird texture. And it turned out really cool. I'm really happy with the model. I've showed it a couple of times actually in example to people who ask about Privateer Press's inks, and like what to kind of expect from them. I tell them this story because I was like, this is a very happy accident, and I've got a model where I have like a very clear application and non-application of the ink, and here are the very stark differences between the two different layers. And it turned out really good.
What about you, Dan? Have you had any happy accidents?
I mean, I suppose so. Nothing. Some of it kind of comes to mind. Just try to pick up some speed paint. My always issue is I always fear the experimentation sometimes because one, I don't want to have to go back and through and redo a paint job because I barely have enough time to do the initial paint job, let alone want to buy another model in case I just really mess it up, right? But played around with some. Mainly, it's just sometimes I've just gone in a hurry on some models and just painted a lot thicker than I should have. But again, it worked out well enough that it was in small enough areas that it wasn't as noticeable, right? Kind of thinking like some of my Bayou gremlins from Malifaux, right? Is hitting them with that green scaly skin first and just hammered on there because I'm in a hurry. I'm just gonna shove it all on there, get it on one coat, call it good. But I mean, nothing in particular necessarily sticks out as like oh, I did this by mistake and it worked out really awesome. Just more, I'm in a hurry. I don't care as much, but hey, it turned out fine.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and it might be a good opportunity to share it now, is the happy accidents and the times when we kind of break out of like normal hobby mode and kind of into the experimental side of things. One of the things that I think helps people learn a new skill and then potentially maybe stick with it. A lot of folks have a hobby journal. And so, they'll record all kinds of things in there. They'll describe the model that they're painting, maybe the paint recipe, if they tried a new strategy, like intentionally, or if they did something on accident and then it's something that they can review and go back to. And if you can go back to it, then that means it becomes repeatable. And even if you don't exactly remember how you did it, if you take, decent notes in your journal, you can, it can jog your memory. And I know a lot of folks have that. Do either one of you guys keep a hobby journal?
A little bit, not maybe as far as you're thinking, but I have, especially when I first started painting all like the War Machine hordes, on some of my other models, is all record like, what did I prime in? What's my base coat? what I used for the leather, what I used, where I use things, So that way when I get more later on to add to the army, I can go back to that recipe and go, here's what I did. I can repeat it pretty standardly. I've gotten a little bit lazier because I've recorded a few of my last paintings, model paintings, right? And so I'm like, I can just go back and rewatch the video and it'll tell me what I did. But I've gotten a little lazy in writing down sometimes. But
well, it's a journal. It's a video journal.
There you go.
Yeah.
Some more credit. How about you, Chad? Do you keep a journal?
No, not consistently. I have jotted down, like I have my the color scheme for my circle army in a notes list just down at the bottom from where I have the collection. I've got some different notes on my phone that are the various army collections, what models I have, if they're painted or not, quantities and stuff like that. And then at the bottom of the circle one, I've also got all of the different colors and stuff because I actually I nailed down the color scheme that I wanted to do for them actually a number of years ago when I did a lot of painting while I was unemployed. Because I'd been painting off and on for a number of years during the time of playing War Machine, but like I didn't start getting a lot done until like around 2015 when I was unemployed for a couple of months and I got tired of playing video games all the time and wanted to do something productive. So I finally hammered down the color scheme that I wanted, wrote it down, and then I've continued using that through as over the years as I've painted more, finished painting that army. Most of the time I don't, because usually I can look at a miniature and see what it is, that I used color-wise in case I need to replicate it.
Yeah.
But I also haven't, most of the projects that I've done are smaller.
Like single, like one-offs?
Yeah, like smaller batches of models, with the exception of like my Death Guard. The Death Guard is a pretty simple color scheme. So I don't really need to write it down because I can just look at a couple of miniatures to see the different colors that I have used. And same thing with the Space Marines that I've done is I haven't done a lot of complex technique stuff, so I don't need to keep track of like layers and upon layers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a sort of a project journal that kind of just that I'll like make a list of things that I'm kind of working on or need to be finished or whatever. But I don't really have like a hobby journal, and I can easily transform my project journal into a hobby journal. And as I was preparing for this topic today, I was thinking how much more productive I would be if I actually did that. It's nice to know, like it's nice to be organized. It's nice to know where things are, and it's nice to know where you are in the steps of a project, So
yeah.
I've got a few things that I've been kind of looking at in terms of still kind of, developing a new skill, learning a new skill. And that could be rather than looking at something on like the whole and like when you look at a whole army project or when you're looking at, a whole model and you want to try a new technique on it or something, you could just focus on the part, focus on maybe a single part of the piece, or even just have a whole set of other models that you don't care about. And just for funsies, you're going to pull it out and say, today, I'm going to practice this stippling, splotching technique, and I'm going to play with, different inks or whatever and see what comes. And if it doesn't work out, it's no worries. That model's never going to see the table anyway. It was specifically set aside for you as practice. And I've been kind of going through my models, and I have a host of duplicates of some things that will probably never see the table. And I'm going to put them in just like a hobby bin and just be like, this is a place where I'm going to practice something. And I wish I would have had that already when I started painting those two Battletech models, because those did not turn out the way that I thought they were going to turn out. And I'm super sad about it. And so, but hey, it's fine. They were just
Live
two
and learn.
plastic models. Yeah, live and learn.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but,
and sometimes it's also a question of like, do you want to go through if something didn't turn out the way you like? Do you want to go through the hassle of stripping it and trying it again? Are you going to be motivated enough for it, or are you just going to kind of move on, try something different?
for this project, for the BattleTech, I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
I have friends with BattleTech models that we'll probably play with, so it's fine. And part of me knew that I was going to use those as extras, but like I really should have just used my extras first. But something else that I was thinking about in terms of developing a new skill, and sometimes you have to change your tools. And one of the biggest changes I've made in the last few months is actually leveling up on my brush size. I'm now painting with a size 3, and I can't tell you how much more confident I feel in my painting, and it just feels better in my hand, feels better with the paint going on. I just have more confidence. And it's just like, and I know that, for some folks who are like super into the hobby, they're like, Windsor Series 7 and, like whatevers, and they're good enough. They can tell the difference. I'm not that good yet, but I knew a size jump was important. So, and I actually recently picked up 3 different kinds of brushes specifically for trying out dry brushing. And so if you look at the bristle types on all 3 of these, they're different, and they're different from what I have previously been using. And so my goal is to take one of these sample models that I have over here off to the side and practice dry brushing on them with my new brushes to figure out which kind of dry brush I like. So so some tools. What kind of tools have you guys found that you like, or maybe you discovered along the way in the process of your hobby?
Yeah, I mean, brushes are a big one when you come to painting, right? I agree. I got some Kolinsky Sables eventually. Part of a Kickstarter, I added them on. I was like, all right, I'll eventually get them. In the meantime, I'll use what I got. But one of the other things is, even before that, just in assembly. I mean, maybe assembly is not as much of a skill you think, but it can be a pain, right? Especially on some of these fidgety models. Infinity, becoming popular amongst some of our group, has very small, very fidgety pieces to put together. One tool I picked up was one of those helper hands, with the little more for soldering like boards, computer soldering and stuff like that. But they have the little pincher, like clothesline pinchers, and the one I have has like a magnifying glass. I don't need it that much, and it has a light. Ooh, but it has those fingers, and so being able to hold those and then position them into place, pop your glue on, and then kind of move them back into there and just walk away, saves you from holding for just a minute or two of holding those pieces together, hoping you don't sneeze, right?
Or get your finger stuck to it.
Yeah, that's happened more than once. So just those type of things, right? Is that then tools for like the skill I've been trying to work on and learn, and I honestly haven't done that much lately, is airbrushing. Airbrushing tool can matter a lot, right? Like what you're using, what your settings. Granted, go cheaper, easier on just starting out, like myself, right? And I don't need super good. I just need enough to, like I said, practice and get a little bit better on. For the most part, just zenithal priming. But even at that, right, I'll sit and I'll try to, okay, can I get just a smooth spray across, or do I hammer it on there? And sometimes it, you press it and hammer way too much paint on there. But I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna be painting over it anyway, and stuff. So one of those ways I kind of find to work some of that practice in is just doing those rough coats on that. So it's it covers an array of tools for you.
Sometimes having the right tool for the job helps with the learning the skill.
Side snips over side cutters, or flat cutters, getting off the sprue as a tool. Again, maybe not so much of a skill, but that is a tool that you should definitely be using as flat cuts versus a side cutter. You'll thank yourself later.
Yeah. I want to circle back to something you said in the beginning, Dan, talking about YouTube being a great place to learn a new skill. There's a lot of folks who are putting out some really great content and stuff like that, but some of those folks actually offer classes. I know a few folks in our Discord server have been doing some of the online classes this last year during the pandemic, and just going through and everyone's focusing on the same model. Everyone that you're being walked through a certain technique and being shown how to do that. Before the pandemic, I think Coleman was doing Saturday gigs and at PDX, Portland Game Store.
PGS.
PGS. That's what I knew there was an acronym in there somewhere. And but like, even if you can't get a coach, these YouTube videos can serve as an interim. But then a lot of the companies put paint guides in print. Like if you get the Forces of books from Privateer Press, in the back of those books, they give you how to paint your army. And even when you bought the Mark III starter boxes, the little pamphlet they give you, there was a paint guide in the back of that. I recently picked up a kit, or like a kit, I guess, from Vallejo, and it comes with an Infinity model, and it comes with the paints for that model with a printed step-by-step guide on how to paint that model. And so that's a great way to learn a skill, and is just trying to copy what someone else is doing. And honestly, that's how a lot of us learned, things growing up. The teacher's like, do this, you do this, do this, you do this. All of a sudden, boom, at the end, you have something, right? And, some Bob Rossi action. But no, I wanted to say that. And then, like, continuing to watch them, I think helps you stay invested in the hobby, and then helps you to grow in your skill set. So like, this is not hobbying, but I learned how to smoke meat and barbecue and stuff, watching hundreds of hours of YouTube. And even just over the weekend, I was watching something on how to smoke a new cut of meat that I had never smoked before, and learning why you have to do a certain thing. Even with all the experience, you have doing something, you can still learn something. So, yeah. I have 2 golden nuggets left on this hobby topic. Should I just keep going?
Well, I was going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, like with videos, like I said, just watching them again. I don't want to necessarily experiment on my own to learn some stuff. Although I was talking with Judy in the Discord, just a couple comments back and forth about using some different nail polishes on models. That I'm going to experiment on because I haven't seen anyone else necessarily doing that. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But I'll probably test it on something else first besides a non-model, and then maybe go on to model. But it's just, like you said, is learning the skill of maybe why we do it, as opposed to just like, oh, this is advanced technique. Sometimes the basics of what needs to happen, is a big way too. And just understanding that level is a great way to move on and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. This step kind of adds to this step later on.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. But Chad, you were going to say?
I was going to touch back on the other times that I was playing around with something with a model, was the what I refer to as dry brush blending, where the technique that I use for dry brushing, like metallics and things like that, of over top of a black primer. Um, and what the blending I did was, is I had, for like the Lady of Anguish model that I did, um, I had the legs that I wanted to kind of fade from one color to another. So I started with those two colors in the extremes of the point that I was working on, and I dry brushed really heavily at where they started, and kept going towards the other end, which each one getting lighter and lighter with like how firmly I was, how often I was doing it, and then I did the reverse with the opposite color. So then it ended up looking like they blended, kind of naturally shifted from one color to another. And in a similar way, when I was working on the scar bust that I did, I had kind of the same idea, but with layering colors for hair, because doing texture for hair, I didn't want to hand do all the different highlights and things like that. So what I did was, it was primed black. I took the base color that I was using, which was Cottor Red base. Did a really heavy dry brush on it, not as much, so that it looked almost fully red, but some of the black was still showing through a little bit. And then I took bootstrap leather, which is a reddish brown, and did a lighter dry brush over top of the red, so that some of the red and the black still shone through, but there was still a nice coat of brown on it. And then the last thing I did was a very light dry brush of mediocre orange for those really high ends. And I did a much lighter dry brush over that. And the end product was, it was a very kind of rich depth of basically four different colors of layering, just through dry brushing. And it was something that I was like, well, let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, then I'll just strip it. If it does, then cool. And then I'll have this in my back pocket. And I've used that other times for hair, when I was trying to do hair in multiple colors without spending the time to go through and paint everything by hand. I did the same thing with my Sergeant Titanicas. I used Cottor Red base, and then I actually used sulfuric yellow over top of it to make it kind of this yellowish or this reddish blonde. And it was a very effective and easy way of getting some nice layering in there.
Yeah. That's a good call. That's good. It's good. So nugget number one is actually painting the same model or two versions of the same model twice. So actually, someone in our Discord, Amanda in our Discord, is doing that right now. She has a Lady Olander from Age of Sigmar that she had painted a while ago, and then now she has a second copy of the model and painting it anew again, and she wants to compare. Where how much gains does she have? Has she got in the process of her hobby and things like that? I think it would be. I think that kind of stuff is a lot of fun, because when we're in the middle of a project, sometimes they're big and then they get tiring by the end. You're like, you just want to finish, and then you never want to paint another Skaven model in your life.
Yeah.
But the reality is you probably should, so that you can compare and see how much you've grown. So that's nugget. My second to last nugget, I guess, when it comes to learning a new skill and how to stick with it, doing things for posterity. And then the last thing is Chad, using your Gur Gadra model is a good example of this. When you've learned a new skill, teach it to someone else.
Yeah.
Showing them what you did and how you did it, and then encouraging them to try it. It's just going to reinforce for you something that you've gained in the process. And it's not it's more for you than it is for them, honestly, because when they're going to take their model and do what they want with it. But the whole idea of you investing in someone else and then is actually is also an investment in yourself. So, which is why I miss those Wednesdays at Rune Board.
Yeah.
because there was some great knowledge around those hobby tables. So
Yeah.
yeah, and wisdom. So
A
hey,
lot of experience too of like a lot of
yeah,
those people. And I guess something we didn't really touch on is like not only videos, and yeah, asking the community, but maybe like asking the community in general, and then maybe having some extended conversations with someone that has experience doing a technique is always a great resource. Like, if you can't find it in YouTube, or if you want to talk to somebody that you know more, um, reach out to your community and try and find someone that has experience and share in their knowledge.
Yeah. It's gonna keep at it a little bit, just because you don't pick it up the first time. Like two brush blending, I kind of tried it a couple times. Like I'll come back to it eventually, but they'll probably look good. But yeah, some of these skills is, especially on these paintings, unless you're really good at some of the stuff. Like for me, it takes me a little while to kind of start getting it down, and then get that rhythm finally. And you might be 10, 20 models deep, and then finally like it clicks, and you're like, oh, okay, I can do this in my sleep now, right? But
yeah, good for you, by the way.
yeah. Oh, and you paint 77 models in a month.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hey, why don't we get to our hobby desks? I thought that was a good conversation, and I know inspired me to get a little bit more organized, and then maybe focus down a little bit on a couple things that I need to focus down on. So, but what's on your hobby desk right now? What are you building? What are you painting? And maybe what new skill are you learning if you're learning one?
Oh, I've got a black hole of hobbying. I've got a resin printer sitting on my hobby desk right now that I'm trying to work in and figure out. So talk about
Ooh.
something to print and paint more. But yeah,
Talk about learning a new skill set.
yeah. So it's and I was kind of trying to record my journey on it, but my first print failed, and I just haven't got back around to quite figuring out why. I think I know why. Again, I had to search the internet to try to figure out what happened, because it was kind of a weird failure, and so I think I have it figured out. I need to go test it, see if I can fix it, and then, like I said, now it's going to be learning on how to the best practice for cleaning it, and for curing things, and for printer settings, and what works good with what resins apparently, and yeah, so
Oh yeah,
it's going to be
yeah.
a journey, fun one, but
Resins and resin mixing to get certain um, in certain qualities, I guess is what I'm
yeah,
looking for, is a whole nother thing. Like there's a local guy that has an Etsy shop, Barthel's Marvels. I was talking to him a little bit about it when he dropped off the Tiamat that I'm going to be painting, that he had printed, and it's a very large model. But it's, the resin's sturdy in some places, but it's still pretty fragile a little
yeah,
bit. And he was talking about his exploits with just mixing different concoctions and stuff, and that's a whole nother process on top of just
yep.
learning how to use a resin printer.
Yeah, I don't plan on doing that one as much until later. Much more comfortable. Then I might
Yeah.
start my own mixes. But for now, it'll just be
Yeah.
shake and go.
Yeah. Well, right now I have been getting a little discouraged with the Riot Quest stuff, just because I'm having trouble constantly coming up with new color schemes, basically for each miniature, because I don't have a unified um, painting scheme, color scheme for like my minion stuff. And I've been getting kind of really irritated with a couple of the models recently. Like I was trying to paint the 4 horsey mans, and I was running into issues trying to paint it where like one of the feet wasn't glued to the base very well, so I had to glue that down. And then I was dry brushing the metallics onto one of the swords, and the arm popped off, and it was a pain in the butt to try and get glued back on, because like it's a cool model, but holy crap, the thing was such a pain to assemble. And now like I'm stuck at this point where like I'm not sure what colors I want to paint stuff. So I think I'm going to take a little break from my Riot Quest stuff, and work on some other things. I have a bunch of painted miniatures in my backlog. But what I was doing yesterday was assembling the Raven Guard Command Squad, which is a box that creates 3 models. It's either 3 HQ models, an ancient, an apothecary, or a captain on a bike, or you can turn them into 3 Black Knight, Ravenwing Black Knight models. And this is in junction with building an all bike Ravenwing list that I've been working on collecting for a little bit. And one of our locals actually found some attack bikes that they had that they didn't really have any use for. And the attack bikes it's a biker, and then there's a sidecar that's got like either a heavy bolter or a melta gun. And I was able to actually just pop the sidecar off and just have the biker. And I'm swapping some bits on that so that I don't have to buy as many boxes of the Ravenwing Command Squad to get the 10 Black Knights that I need, because they come in boxes of 3. So they had 4 bikes. I got the Raven Guard. I got the Command Squad assembled, and then I took one of the attack bikes that I actually assembled and then started doing some of the part swap on that. And then the other attack bikes had a little bit of paint on them. I'm working on stripping those right now. And then I'm going to work on the part swapping and everything for those. And it's coming along. I mean, they're not going to look identical. So of the 2 5-man units, 2 in each of them are going to look a little different. But they're still going to fit in pretty well, and that's what I'm currently working on, is a little bit more of a hobbying rather than a painting project, and eventually I'll get around to some of the other painting stuff I have going on.
Nice. That's one of the things I like about 40K, and they encourage kit bashing,
Yeah.
So
well, what I'm doing is the Black Knights are supposed to have the plasma talons, which are like plasma guns on the front of the bikes. And the attack bikes have guns there, but they're bolters. So I took the bolters off, and I am finding like extra plasma pistols and stuff that I have, and basically cutting the Marine hand off so that only the gun is left, and then using that as the mount to the front of the bike. And it's worked out pretty good so far. So
nice.
And that'll save me having to buy like 2 more boxes basically, and each one of those boxes is like $54. So by just doing this kit bashing is saving me a bunch of money.
Nice. And it's creative, and it's yours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got I've had some fun stuff on my hobby desk this last couple weeks. I had picked up some models for the Combined Army for Infinity, and one of them is the Raichu, which is their tag. So the big robot or whatever, and it was partially painted. So it had like the body was painted, and both arms were not attached, but were primed. And so what I decided to do for fun is try to color match, and so I've been doing thin layers of different things to try to color match, and it's been fun. That's a whole nother skill, I think, that exists.
Yeah.
And I picked up some paint recently that I think is gonna do the trick. I'm gonna mix it with I think some Nuln Oil, and I think that's gonna get me the match that I'm looking for. And so I'm pretty excited. I'm calling it a rescue Raichu project. and then I have another rescue project on my desk. I picked up a storm wall for Signar for War Machine. I got it in pieces, tons of pieces, Chad. And so now currently it is in 3 pieces. And so before I fully assemble it back, I actually want to do some touch-up painting. So I'm going to use the skill of color matching that I have been practicing on the Raichu for the storm wall, and I actually redid the base of the basing of the storm wall, and gosh, I did something that I've never done before, and from like the 3 feet test, it looks amazing. Like up close, you can see like what I did, and it doesn't look like like it doesn't look like someone would intentionally do what I did. And then you put it on the table and you stand back 3 feet and you go, "Hey, that was good work."
Nice.
So,
Nice.
so I'm pretty excited to field Storm Division now that I've got a Storm Wall to go with.
Mhm.
I don't even know if it's a good list. I don't care. I just want it to look good on the table. So, and then another creative thing that I've got on my hobby desk that I'm done with now is I did a conversion for an undercover reporter for Malifaux. I'm not sure if I've talked about it here. Between the editions, you know, they repackaged the crew boxes, and anyway, the news reporters, I can't remember what their keyword is for the life of me for right now, but they gained a model called an undercover reporter. And so if you have the M2 box, M2E box, it doesn't have one, but if you buy the M3E box, it does. Well, I have the second edition Malifaux models. I'm not so keen on buying the new crew box when I have the other ones.
Yep.
So I did a little kit bash, and it looks pretty good. And there's 5 pieces of plastic on a base, and 4 of them are weird Malifaux plastic, and then the 5th one is a 3D printed thing. And so I think it follows the conversion rules. It'll be very obvious to anyone once I get paint on it that it's an undercover reporter. So pretty proud of it. So now I just got to prime and paint it. So, but that's for my guild army. So yeah, 3 projects, 3 games, 3 different games, because that's how I roll, I guess.
Why not?
Well, I'm gonna have to catch up on getting stuff done because the store's getting 2 new display cases here in the next week or so.
Nice.
So I got to get some models done to fill them up so that we can have some stuff on display. But it'll also give me an opportunity to spread out the Death Guard stuff into a better and more visible display case.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good idea, because you do some good work on that army, and sometimes you see models too close together, they just kind of visually clump together.
So, yeah, and they're all crammed. Like the case that they're in, they're all kind of crammed in there, just so that they would all fit. And so it'll be nice to be able to like spread some of that out a little bit. Do a couple of shelves that are a little scenic, with some of the stuff that's there. So
I like that.
That'll be fun to do.
Yeah.
Plus, show off all my stuff that I spent hours and hours on.
Yeah. Well, it's a good conversation. I'm glad that we were able to connect and get caught up. The last couple episodes, we had some guests on, and so if you're new to Spell Storm Miniatures, go ahead and check out our backlog. There's some fun conversations for you to listen to. I want to draw everyone's attention to what's going on in the community. Every Thursday on our Discord server, we host a paint party, and it's awesome. And you don't have to paint; you can build if you want. But paint party is an alliteration, and so that's what we stuck with to name it. But I want to encourage you to grab whatever it is you're working on, log in, and we'll chat about whatever hot topic is we're chatting about. But it's a great place to get good work done, and so I want to encourage you to do that. The second thing that's very, very important is starting in the month of April, we are starting a book club. And so once again, that'll be on our Discord server, and we'll randomly, we kind of have a system, I think, of sort of randomization, selecting something for all of us to read. And then at the end of the month, we'll get together on Discord and we'll talk about what it is that we read. And we're starting with the free rule set put out by Parabellum for the game Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. There's a fair number of us who are interested in that game, and we're going to be checking it out. And some of us already have models that we're already painting and that sort of thing. And so we're going to read the rules and then talk about them. So I'm pretty excited about the book club. I think we're going to alternate between rule set and something fiction. Rule set, something fiction. That's what I think we're going to be doing going forward. So I'm pretty excited about that. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening to our show. We love to hear from you, and so you can do that by emailing us at spellsforminiatures@gmail.com. You can send us a message on Facebook. You can join our Discord server. There's a lot of action that takes place there. If you want to support us, you can do so by telling your friends. You can support us on Patreon. You can support us on Ko-fi. We even have really cool links for affiliate links. If you shop on Amazon or Joann's or Blix, you can order things online, and that's a great way of supporting us. Oh, and we have T-shirts. So I want to encourage you to buy the Spellstorm Miniature T-shirt. There it is. Because when we start playing in person, you're gonna want to wear that. That's gonna be what all the cool kids are wearing. So
yeah, I still need one of those.
Yep. Anyway, you'll find all the links for all those things on our website and then on our Discord, and then check us out on YouTube too. Dan's doing a lot of video work and unboxing and different things like that, and so that's a great way to just be encouraged in the hobby. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.